The first that I'm seeing right now is like we're in such a climate that people are bringing personal stuff into work and being able to manage through that, and also just sort of sifting through just a lot of, people have lost the ability to talk to one another.
Uh-huh.
So it's, people are very divisive right now, and that's definitely seeping in.
This is the More Than Money podcast that explores how wealth, purpose, and planning come together to create a meaningful life. I'm Jake Cuthbert, president of Educo Advisor Group, and around here, we believe finances should serve your life, not the other way around. So let's dive in. Hey, this is Jake Cuthbert. We're back with another episode of the More Than Money podcast. Today, I have a special guest with me, Stephanie Masters. Steph and I go back quite a ways. We're going to talk about some really cool leadership and development stuff, her path through education and through nonprofits, and then, the for-profit world as well. So really looking forward to this discussion. We're going to jump right in. So Steph, you have a really interesting background, and a lot of it's around leadership and development. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, kind of like your journey and how you got to where you are now?
It's a long journey.
It is.
So I started out in education. I actually started out as an art teacher, and
which always kind of makes me laugh.
Yeah.
No disrespect to the teachers, of course.
Yeah, I loved the kids. I really struggled with the bureaucracy of education and the parents. The parents were really a struggle. So I remember when I went home and I told my grandmother and I told my mom that I was going to quit teaching, and my grandmother was like, "Well, that was a failure." And I thought, oh my gosh, like, how do I recover from this? So I did pivot into doing art with the elderly. So I got a job as an art therapist and doing activity therapy in long-term care. Came across somebody in HR at that point who thought I was funny and I had an outgoing personality, and she asked me if I had ever thought about going into HR, and I said no, but I'm interested. And so my HR path just started to take off. I was a recruiter. I worked in benefits, and then I got into training and development, and that's where my education and my HR background really collided. And I thought, this is it. This is what I was waiting for. So I had lots of people invest in me along the way, and found what I loved.
That's awesome. And those paths really did collide at one point. You were then doing some stuff even in higher ed, right? Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
So I had it in my head that I wanted to be a college professor, and that I wanted to be in the collegiate setting because I love to read, I love to learn, and I thought, what a great way, work for a university. So I went and I worked for a university, and they asked me to be an HR business partner, which, if you're not familiar with HR, it's you're jack of all trades, master of none. So you're aligned to a business, and then the business basically tells you what their strategy is, and then you support the people that do it. Mm-hmm. So that could be training, it could be coaching, it could be all of these different things. And in the time that I was working in higher ed, great benefits. So you have lots of vacation. So I was actually able to launch my consulting business because I had all of this time off. And sort of build the side hustle while I was in higher ed.
And was that always the path to go permanently into the side hustle? We won't divulge that obviously too wide, but was that always the path that you kind of saw, or was that more of just, I needed to fill the time and then sort of became that accidental, we were joking earlier, but like that accidental business owner?
I don't think it was my original path, but as the older I get, I have less tolerance for like other people telling me what to do and what I should focus on. And so for me, it became very clear that the woman that I was reporting to at the university I was working at, we were not aligned, and I needed an out. And as a woman in her 40s, it's a lot harder to like pivot and find another job in an organization. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do this on my own.
Okay.
So I just, for 9 months, I worked part-time. So I did like 32 hours a week at the university. And then the rest of the time, I started to build my book of business. I started to build out the model of what I was going to do. And about 8 months after I sort of made that decision, I left.
Nice, nice. And then you also spent some time in the corporate world as well.
Sure did.
And so tell us a little bit about how like that really differs and some of the cultural differences. And we'll talk a little bit more about culture here in a minute. But like, what is the biggest thing that you see that's the cultural shift from higher ed to corporate, and then now kind of where you are?
Yeah. So corporate, you have your, quantitative goals. You have KPIs, OKRs, whatever you want to call them. And you're really held accountable for behavior every day.
Mm-hmm.
And to produce and to perform. And in higher education, it's very different. It's more qualitative. So it's more about how people feel and what they see of the experience, and wired to have goals and to like always find something else to challenge me. I found that higher education was really frustrating because everything takes 3 times longer than it does in corporate. Like corporate makes a decision and they want you to implement it immediately. In higher education, it's like, well, I'm going to mention this, but then I'm not going to talk about it for a few more months. And then I might talk about it again. And then it's a priority.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And now, working, you spent some time in the nonprofit space as well. So I guess that could be somewhat of the education, but what have you found is the difference between those two that we just talked about, and then like that smaller or medium-sized nonprofit that you spent some time with as well, from a cultural standpoint?
So nonprofit is incredibly unique because everybody that works in nonprofit is driven by like a higher purpose or a mission.
The passion for the nonprofit,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
for the cause or the community that they impact, and it's also a different business structure. So in a nonprofit, you have the board runs the organization, but so does the executive director.
Mm-hmm.
So you sort of have this dual leadership happening, which you don't have in any other organization.
Yep.
And so it's interesting to see if there isn't that synergy between the board chair and the board with the executive director. It just gets really messy. And so it's hard to create priorities. It's hard to create the strategy because you have somebody who's in the organization every day, seeing the impact of the work, and may have different priorities than the board that just sort of sees the 30,000 foot view.
Mm-hmm.
So I just see it. You have to know about that dynamic going in, whether you're a board member or you're an ED, knowing that's a really unique relationship that you have to manage.
Sure. And I, I've experienced that, obviously being on some boards, and we've been on some boards at the same time, and been through a few interesting times as well there. So, now taking all of what you really just said, so for I guess everybody out there from an organizational standpoint, what would you say is one of the biggest challenges across, no matter where you are in an organizational structure, whether it be small business or some of the things we talked about? What do you see as some of the most commonalities or biggest challenges across the organizations, both cultural and developmental and some things like that?
I see several. So the first that I'm seeing right now is like we're in such a climate that people are bringing personal stuff into work and being able to manage through that, and also just sort of sifting through just a lot of, people have lost the ability to talk to one another. Uh-huh. So it's, people are very divisive right now, and that's definitely seeping in. There was a SHRM report, which is the Society of Human Resources Management, mm-hmm. that did a study, and it says that, because of just some of the cultural things that we're seeing right now, people immediately either have an immediate negative reaction or a positive reaction. There's very rarely where they're sort of trying to ask more or assume positive intent or being open to hearing somebody's different point of view.
Gotcha.
And so in terms of leadership, it's about how are you creating a culture within your team that you're creating that safe space for people to talk about some of the challenges they're experiencing, but also, being able to have growth conversations. I think people take things really personally.
And so a couple things there that I'd love for you to expand on. So do you see the divisiveness? Is it generationally? Is it, maybe some generational driven? Is it race, ethnicity driven? Is it gender driven? Anything stand out specifically?
All of it.
Or, everything.
All of it. I
yes.
mean, one of the things that we've always seen is the generational differences in a workplace. It's whatever generation comes before yours demonizes you. Like, you're the worst. Whatever you are, you're the worst.
Fair.
And so, the commonality across all of the generations is that people want to have work with purpose and they want to feel like they have opportunities to learn and grow. That's universal. But then how they want to do that and what support they want is different.
Gotcha. So, what's your biggest piece of advice to leaders from that standpoint in really managing that? I know you kind of touched on it, but if you had one thing, what would be the biggest piece of advice for leadership or leadership teams to kind of manage some of that, divisiveness?
I think there's two parts. So the first one is like leaving your assumptions at the door and actively listen. So ask open-ended questions to really get at why is somebody, stuck in a particular headspace or why they're stuck on it. And then being willing to have the conversation of, let's talk through it. What does this look like? What are the challenges?
And one of the things and I'll put words into your mouth. You didn't say this, but you referenced they're bringing other things, outside things into is that baggage? I call it baggage, right? Is that more of what you're referencing, or is it something different? Did I miss kind of what you meant? Like, what are they bringing in that is creating some of the issues, or is it belief systems or values, or?
I think it's all of it. I do see that more people are struggling with increased costs, with demands. I think that people are having a harder time. COVID, people worked from home for such a long time. And now we had the hybrid work environment. And what I'm really seeing now is there are so many organizations that are moving away from hybrid and it's full 5 days in the office. And so that transition has been super hard for a lot of people. Some people are welcoming it, where it's like, finally, I can socialize and I feel like I'm connected again. And other people are like, okay, this is another 3 hours onto my day,
right?
Because I live, far away from the office and I have to work in a cubicle where, I have to manage noise again. So there's a lot of components to it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I think the Wall Street Journal just did a piece on this, that like there's actually just pushback where they're saying 4 and 5 days, management or leadership is saying 4 and 5 days a week, and people just aren't going. They're just like almost, hey, fire me if you want, but I'm not doing this. So that's been a really interesting kind of return. Anything else to unwrap there, or just kind of?
Yeah, what I see with the organizations that I work is the people who don't want to come back are typically the really high performers.
Okay.
So they're doing really well. Like they are, leading, exceeding expectations, really high performing. And they don't feel that the time in the office is really a benefit to them.
Questioning why, right? Like the why.
Yeah.
Give me a reason I need to be in there.
Yeah. Like I'm above and beyond, meeting your expectations. I'm delivering quality product. I'm building relationships. I'm doing all of these things. Why do I need to physically do that in an office?
Why am I checking the box, right?
Yeah.
It's almost just like, check the box to come in.
Yeah.
So, gotcha. Well, is it some just maybe justifying the real estate space?
Some of it, yeah, I think. Well, I also see that with a lot of the older generations, they tend to, if I, out of sight, out of mind. So, are you really working? And so they're not really having the conversation. So it comes down to trust.
Right.
If there isn't trust, then you tend to put these things in place, like the return to work policy. Everybody rolls it out, it's best for everybody, and the high performers are like, is it really?
Right.
It's not really better for me.
So this is a great segue. We were just talking, you and I, we were just talking a couple of days or weeks ago about a book that you just read, and I wanted to touch on it because I downloaded on Audible and I'm about 3/4 of the way through and I think it's fantastic. But you and I were talking about radical candor. So can you kind of put some radical candor to some of what we were just talking about and how that really reflects into, the return to work and the cultural and the vibe that really can.
So the one organization that I'm working with that, does, it's one particular high performer. So they have asked me to come in and have the conversation. And so it's what's the long-term impact to him in his career if he isn't present, if he isn't involved in some of those, what we call collisions. You run into somebody having a cup of coffee and you have this organic conversation. And then from that, some project happens or, something great comes out of it. That individual is missing out. So
because you mean from being in the office?
Yeah, from being in the office.
Gotcha.
So the radical candor piece of it is, hey, you're knocking it out of the park. You are clearly delivering. And right now you are overperforming in your role, which is fantastic. When we look at the long-term trajectory of your career, this is going to hurt you if you aren't a part of, some of the organic interactions that you have within an office. So where you are, above and beyond right now, I know that you have career aspirations. I know that you want to grow with the organization. If you're home and you don't have those interactions with higher level leaders, if you're not having those conversations and you aren't finding those ways to collaborate, it's going to hurt you long term. So that's the payoff, is
Right.
If you stay home, this is where you're going to be. If you're in the office, you're going to have more opportunity to see what that career trajectory looks like.
Fair. Now, what would you say, maybe to that same high performer though, maybe they're not necessarily at home, but not in the office. So is that a little different story, right?
So sitting at a Starbucks somewhere?
Maybe,
Yeah.
right? Maybe, who knows what kind of conversations could come from a Starbucks or things like that. Is that reasonable to maybe think that that's the thing that they're doing, or?
Yeah. I think it all comes down to where are they going to thrive. And I think some of the conversation needs to be is if you're not going to thrive in an office environment, but if you're complaining about noise and then you're sitting at a Starbucks.
Fair. Yeah,
they're
not quiet, right?
No,
they're
never.
Not quiet.
Yeah, they purposely play the music really loud.
Yeah.
We love you. We want you to stay, but not really.
And have that blower right above the door that has a tendency to blow cold air on you. That's fair. What else from radical candor? Because I know we could probably go on about this for hours, but I'm really enjoying it so far, and it's given me some good leadership tips, I guess. What would you say is a good takeaway for our listeners to? Yeah. Why should they listen to it, and what's the biggest feedback from that?
I think what I love about the model is it has the 4 quadrants. So the 4 quadrants, it starts with, we all want to be in radical candor where we can care for the person and be direct. But then we have ruinous empathy, which means that we tend to allow our relationships with people impede our ability to be able to give them direct feedback. Then we have manipulative insincerity, which is so many of us have experienced that in the corporate setting. Like, the movie Office Space is like a perfect example of that.
Right.
Where it's, I'm going to guide you in the direction that I want you to go in, but pretend that this is a collaboration.
Right.
And then we have obnoxious aggression. And I think all of us have worked with people who yell, They make assumptions. They're very quick to judge and are, openly hostile or angry with us about our performance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, one of the worst because it creates a toxic work environment.
Yep.
I mean, none of them are ideal other than, radical candor. But I think owning where you are as an individual, I think everyone should learn how to do radical candor, whether you're an individual contributor or you're a leader. It's just a good practice to build authentic relationships with people and move from being nice, which to me is fake,
Yep.
to being kind, where I respect you, so I'm going to give you this advice or I'm going to share this feedback with you because I do care about you as a person and this might be a blind spot for you.
And it's more authentic, right? I think that's the biggest thing
Yes.
that I don't think they've used the word authentic to the point where I'm at yet, but in the book, but
Yeah.
I think authenticity is the big takeaway that I've had so far.
Absolutely.
Any other good reading material podcasts that you like that for our listeners out there? I always like to give these, so
Yeah.
but I'm kind of a dork.
I love Adam Grant's work life. So
Okay.
he's an organizational psychologist at the Wharton School at Penn.
Mm-hmm.
And he brings on individuals who have tremendous expertise. But he is really making us question the way that we lead, the way that we create culture, and really how do we build, these great relationships with clients and our community and our network. And I listen to him every day. I love him.
Oh, it's a podcast?
Mhm.
Okay, I wasn't familiar with that one. So
yeah.
Work Life Podcast. Got it.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, gonna add that one to the list.
All right.
So I appreciate it. Switching gears a little bit, but you know how much I love these things, so I didn't want to forget to talk about this. You've used Clifton Strengths for quite some time now, but you're proficient in some of the other profiles, predictive index, and I know you and I have talked about Colby. We've even worked on some of this stuff together, and you helped me out considerably. If you could share just a little bit about kind of how, just real briefly, how each of them really fits in and what it really evaluates, and then really the importance of taking a look, because in our industry and industries surrounding us, there might be one of them that's used, but that's not necessarily the catch-all, right? Mm-hmm. So just wanted to get your opinion on how they all complement each other and really what the purpose of each of them is. So if you don't mind.
No, not at all. So all of them are based on positive psychology. So it's all based on the same research, but it has a different lens. So DISC and predictive index are incredibly similar. They diverged in, I think, the 1950s or the 1960s to have a different lens. But each of the assessments gives you insights that can really help propel your career in a strategic way, because it talks about like what your preferences are, what are the things that you do intuitively, and then what are some of our blind spots, which, we all have them. So I think DISC is great for as teams are just coming together and you're trying to figure out like all of the basics. PI is used in hiring and onboarding. Clifton Strengths is more holistic. It looks at you as a whole person, not just who you are at work. And so that's why we use it in the nonprofit space, because it's something that, you're deeply embedded in your community anyway. Mm-hmm. So I use the Clifton Strengths for career development and executive coaching. Okay. Because that gives you the most comprehensive information about who you are, how you're wired, how it helps you, how it hinders, and really helps you build a strategic plan on who you are in all aspects of your life. Uh-huh. Because Gallup believes that you have to focus on both side by side for it to be successful. You can't just thrive in one area. It's, really paying attention
sort of like you can't be miserable at home and really be a high performer at work, right?
Yeah.
I gotcha. What about Colby too? Yeah, I know maybe
Colby is the one that I have the least amount of experience with, but I know that people really relate to it. It's like, it's just a different perspective. And it also gives you a better understanding of how you process information and like, what are the things that you prioritize?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just recently more became familiar with Colby when I started become part of Strategic Coach, which has been a game changer. But I find it fascinating how accurate they all are, no matter, and not that I've ever tried to cheat the system, but if you like look at them again and try to manipulate it, they still comes out with the same thing, and it's still spot on, in my opinion. I don't know if you found the same. But so how can leaders kind of use that to their, advantage in developing teams and things like that? Is it better to have somebody, I know what my answer is, but is it better to have somebody facilitate that, or is it better to kind of go at it on their own from a team perspective? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it really depends on where the organization is. It can be done organically if you're really, really small and you're just starting, and you may not have the resources to be able to bring anybody in. You can have those conversations and just start with like, let's talk about how we want to work together, and how do we approach conflict? What are the things that you love to do? What are the things that you avoid to do, and why? When you get to larger teams, it is best to find somebody who is certified, who has the experience, that partners with you. They should never just be these generic sessions. It really should be like your organization, looking at what are the goals, what's the philosophy of the way that you lead this business, and how do you handle it, and infusing the assessments into that. So it's deeply embedded in, okay, now I understand how I, fit into the organization and how I contribute to the bigger picture.
Gotcha. And so, we talked about a little bit, maybe offline a little bit, and then online a little bit about the accidental business owner. So I always like to touch on that because so many of our clients have become accidental business owners. You mentioned that you may even fall into that category. If you were starting an organization from the ground up, what do you tell the accidental business owner? What do you tell the person who maybe had a life event, or where do you start them?
I start them in actually several different areas. Like, why do you want to do it? Why does it make sense? Why does it make sense for you? Do you have a unique value proposition? Because if the answer is no, you probably shouldn't do it. and
it's okay to say that, right?
Yeah.
Radical candor.
You're not ready. Or it's, what do you know about business to run a business? I am great at the sales, the relationships, and the facilitation. I'm terrible at the financial, the budgeting, and like my business partner laughed when we first met, and she was like, "Well, how do you handle your invoicing and your accounts payable and receivable?" And I had it on Post-it notes. I had 2 different colored Post-it notes on a whiteboard. And she was fantastic. Like, no.
Yeah. And if I remember right, I actually had to ask you for an invoice at some point.
Yeah,
maybe more than once. I've had to ask you for an invoice for some work that you
I'm like, we already did it. It's done.
Yeah, right. I mean, I would have taken it gladly, but I did want to compensate you for the work.
Yeah. So you have to know what you're good at and what you're not. And do you have like the right people around you or the right support system to fill in those gaps? If you don't, it's really, really hard.
Yeah, so and I think that's one of the huge things about Strategic Coach, right? Find a who, not a how, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know how to do it, find somebody who does, and you'll be better off in the long run. It may be a pain point to spend the money or hire someone, but in the long run, it's really going to be it's going to pay a lot of dividends, right?
Yeah.
So again, from a leadership perspective, if you had one takeaway just from a leadership perspective, and maybe something that's a common theme amongst the executives that you coach, what is the one piece that you would give them across the board?
Lead authentically. Like, I think leaders need to be relatable. They need to be real, and also share what they see as their strengths and where they're struggling. I just see a lot of leaders, it's lonely. Like when you get to either being a business owner or an executive, it's really lonely. There are less people for you to complain to turn to.
Yep.
And so I would say lead authentically and figure out like who's your support network, and who are the people that are going to lift you up and make you better, and know when to ask for help.
I think that's a great point. I was actually having this conversation with my wife not too long ago. It is lonely sometimes, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons that I've embraced strategic coach so much is I can go and be in a room, albeit once a quarter, but I can go and be in a room with the folks that are struggling with the same things. And obviously I have, a smaller network around here of really the people who are in it, day to day. But I think that's huge, is to, sometimes it's lonely because nobody, the employee or employees that you may know or be friends with or whatever, they don't have the same struggles. So there's really not relatable or no relatable content. So it's tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, so leading authentically, I think is huge. And then definitely kind of surrounding yourself with the right people.
And if you don't have those people, I tell everyone to invest in a coach. Is that if you can find a coach that fits you, and cultural fit for a coach is critical. But finding somebody that you can talk to. I have some folks that I talk to quarterly because that fits what they're looking for. And then I have other newer leaders that are business owners that are like, I don't have anybody to talk to. So can we do like a half hour a week?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's define, like, what am I holding you accountable to?
Right.
What are the things that you want to talk about and why? And how does it contribute to the business success? Always have somebody there that's going to help you do that.
And what you'll find a lot of times, at least I was amazed by this at first, most of the coaches actually have their own coaches too. I don't know if you
Yes.
see that a lot, but I was fascinated by that. To your same point, right?
You can get stale.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you get stuck in like, oh, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been executive coaching now for 15 years. So I've had coaching clients all of this time. And I do reach out to other coaches, and we support each other, and we also work together to sort of challenge our own thinking, and make sure that we're not, becoming irrelevant, but also just sort of staying on the pulse of, am I still approaching this the right way?
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all look at it from a different lens, right? So you kind of need somebody to almost fact check you, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Accountability.
Right? Accountability.
It's all about accountability.
Sure. So, I as we start to kind of wrap up here, what's next for you? I know we just talked things are going really well. They're thriving right now. You've kind of made a little pivot. And if you want to share that, you're more than welcome. But what's next?
For me, it's I'm looking for the next certification that I get.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think of, what is in great need with the clients that I work with. So I have pivoted. So have been working with nonprofit Sidekick, doing a lot of work with some great nonprofits. We're going to continue to do that. But what we're also recognizing is that I do have this corporate experience in small business and higher education, where I'm also helping those organizations that no longer have internal resources for training, HR policy development, performance management, all of those things. And so, this as a business owner, sometimes you have to figure out where the business is. Yep. And pivot. And so that's what we're doing, is we're diversifying. And so I think I love certifications. I'm up to 28 now.
The alphabet soup.
Yeah, the alphabet soup. So I'm just thinking,
that's
like,
that's a big
next?
business card.
Yeah.
That's a really big business card.
Yeah. I'm like, what's relevant today?
Yeah, right.
That I'm going to put on there. So I think I have been looking at another a Gallup certification.
Okay.
And so that might be sort of the next thing that I focus on.
And so those certifications, what do those look like? Is that a class? Is it a test? Is it more of practical learning? What's that look like
Gallup
for
is
you?
all about experiential learning, so it's typically in a workshop setting at first.
Okay.
And then there can be a test with it. So like Clifton Strengths, to get that certification, you need to have so many hours of coaching where they listen in on your calls and they're a part of that and they give you feedback and then they give you the certification.
Okay.
So there's a continued certification that I'm really starting to look at, and it's more encompassing some of the other assessments that they have.
Okay.
So they have an entrepreneurial assessment. They have one for kids in college. So there's different ones that we can look at, and the more that I can expand, the more people that I can serve.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then, so if any of our listeners are, looking for that HR partner, what is a business that you kind of want to work for or want to work with? I mean, what does that look like in case, some folks out there need help? And I know all small business owners do, because the handbooks as small business owners, the handbooks and the policies and everything, I found a who and I have a Steph. So,
really it's anybody that needs support. So sometimes it's, I just need to create a vacation policy. Or, Steph, I've had this conversation 5 times with this employee and it's not making a difference. Can you come in and maybe, share? Sometimes you can't be a prophet in your own land. So having somebody else come in and say it a little bit differently, it's
like
sticks.
teaching my kids.
Somebody
else tells them it's fine, but if I tell them it's
yes, exactly. Okay. That's the experience that I have too. Like somebody told me this, and I was like, yeah, I've said that 5 times, but okay.
Gotcha. And so you're really kind of agnostic as far as size of organization. I mean, it doesn't necessarily matter.
No, it doesn't matter. Like right now, I have a very large corporate client, and then I have a few really small businesses that have less than 5 people, and I'm really helping them, create frameworks and set things up, and so it doesn't matter. And if I can't do it, I have a great network where I can connect them with somebody that would be able to assist them.
Perfect. Well, no, it's been great. I don't want to keep you a ton of time, so I really appreciate you joining us.
This is so much fun.
It was fun just to chat.
Yeah,
we don't get to do this very often. So cool.
This is
great. It's very non-serious. Normally when we're having conversations, a little more serious.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Normally we are not smiling this much.
No, I appreciate it, and thank you for being on. And so that'll wrap up our podcast for today. More Than Money. Stephanie Masters from nonprofit Sidekick, and Jake Cuthbert from Educo Advisor Group signing off.